Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We know folks are still coming into the room, maybe trying to find the Zoom link. We hope you all are enjoying your Tuesdays as we get ready for our first family support series of the summer. We'll have a few of these throughout the summer around specific times of year to be able to help support you all in your transition to Mason as we get ready for things like orientation and move-in and all of those things. But thank you again for being here. We'll get started in just a few minutes. All right, I'll give it one more minute and we'll get started. All right, well, we're going to get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Dalen Orlick. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am the Associate Director of Family Programs here at George Mason University, and we are very excited to be able to host our first family support summer series around prepping for orientation, getting ready we're getting ready to welcome you all as a part of our orientation programs over the course of the summer. And we have two incredible guests with us this evening from the Office of New Student and Family Programs, which is also the office that hosts orientation and primarily works with our family population. I am also housed within that office, and you'll be interacting with us all summer long throughout a variety of things. Before we dive into our program tonight and I turn it over to our incredible guests, just a few things that you all should be aware of. So we do have closed captioning available for you. At the bottom of your screen, it'll have a show closed captioning option for you. You will be able to turn that on in case we're cutting in and out. Sometimes technology can be fickle, or if you need it for accessibility, it is there and available for you. We will also be placing links to certain things that we'll be discussing this evening in the chat box for you. And if you have any questions about anything that we will be talking about throughout the entirety of the presentation, we will answer them at the end, but you will put them in the Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see Q&A. You will be able to click that and put your questions or any thing in there, and we'll answer them at the end of the session or maybe in real time via messages back and forth with you in that chat box. So just keep an eye out there. You won't be able to use The webinar chat, only the hosts and panelists will be able to. So please use the Q&A feature for all of your things. But with that, I'll turn it over to our amazing presenters, and I'll leave you all in good hands, and I will be managing links and answering your Q&As as we continue. So I will turn it over to you both.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. We are so excited to welcome you all to this webinar and tell you a little bit more about all the great work that we've been doing to plan orientation for you all and get your questions answered. So that being said, I'm going to launch right into our introductions. My name is Jessie. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director of Orientation. And I'll pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Juliana.
Hi, good evening. So looking forward to spending this time with you today. My name is Juliana Napetsic, pronouns she, her. I am the other Assistant Director of Orientation.
Awesome. So we're here, like Dalen said, to tell you a little bit more about what orientation will look like, both for your student as well as for you as family and supporters of your student. So moving straight into what orientation is and what it looks like for our students. So orientation is a chance for all of our students to be able to experience Mason as their first look into what their college experience would be like. There are two separate components to orientation this summer. If you look here on our screen, the virtual advising and registration session, which our students will attend on their own, in which they will meet with their advisors and choose their courses. And then we will have an on-campus orientation program for our students, as well as you all as supporters and family members of the student. This will happen on campus. And both of these dates are required as a part of your student's entrance to Mason. We will talk a little bit about the structure of what the timeline for preparing for orientation looks like in just a moment. But just for you all reference, registration for both of these sessions opened on April 3rd. These sessions can be chosen separately from each other. These dates will happen on separate dates, and they can be taken in any order. So students can participate in their virtual advising and registration session before their on-campus session, or they can choose a session afterwards. We will ask you all to refer to your student's registration link in order to see what dates are available based on our current availability, open spots, as well as what population your students are. So based on whether your student is a freshman, a transfer student, an international student, or any other population that they might fall under, they will have specific dates available to them. And then before orientation, we will have this pre-orientation checklist that Juliana will talk about in just one moment that will prepare your student for everything that they need to know for both their virtual advising and registration session, as well as their on-campus orientation session. And then afterwards, they'll also be able to complete a post-orientation checklist in order to get them prepared for their arrival to campus this fall.
Great. So our pre-orientation checklist is featured on our website, and I just dropped the link in the chat if you're tuning in on a computer. So this is what we suggest that your student does as they're preparing for August in classes. And so one of the first things we want them to do is set up their Patriot password and their Mason email. Their Patriot password and their Mason email really allows them to have access to all of our systems here at Mason. So their Outlook, their Blackboard, which they'll be able to access their course information on, as well as the portal to register for classes. And so it's important that they complete that. And then we ask that they register for orientation. So as Jessie said, we have our virtual advising and registration session, and then we have our in-person on-campus session. And those are two different dates, but you'll register for those, and you'll be able to choose those dates. And then it's required that first-year students, our freshmen and our transfers, complete pre-orientation virtual content, which takes about like an hour and 45 minutes. And so freshmen and transfer, these are two different like modules. And so it's important that the student chooses the link that is relevant to them. And so encourage them to look at these and complete these, and that is required. And then submit final transcripts and scores to admissions. You want to make sure that your student has submitted that, and then access financial aid and accept awards through Patriot Web. And so it's really important that they set that Patriot password so that they can access their Patriot Web, so they can see their financial information as well. And then complete immunization records, which is due August 1st. That's needs to be completed through for Student Health Services. And then review placement exam requirements, prepare to register for classes, and then we'll also want them to submit an ID photo. And the link is on our website as well. And then you'll also want to connect with Mason, and so they can start beginning to look at student organizations that they may want to join, our registered student organizations, which are primarily student-led, and they're a great opportunity for them to find their community here. And so we encourage that they download that and start looking at that, and we'll be talking about that more at our in-person orientation sessions.
Alrighty, so all of this information, like we said, can be found on the website. Now, we know that there are lots of links on the website, so we wanted to go ahead and take you through what specific clicks you need to take to get to this pre-orientation checklist and all of the links that we've been talking about thus far. So this is also where you'll be able to access your schedule as a family supporter and for your students as well. So let me go ahead and click, Let me go ahead and click out of this here and take you to our wonderful website. So this is what our website looks like. Across the top here, as you can see, there are specific student populations that your student may fall under. But right now we're going to primarily focus on our family members orientation tab. Actually, let me backtrack a bit here. So that pre-orientation checklist is relatively the same for all students arriving to campus. So if you click for your student population, so let's say you are a parent of a freshman student, you will go here where it says orientation checklist. And you'll be able to access all of the information that Juliana just talked about, give you links to set up your Patriot Pass. Let's say you're linked to register for orientation, your Patriot Preview, pre-orientation virtual content, and so on and so forth. So be sure to direct your students to this area in order to check out their checklist, as well as direct them to emails and communication that they would be receiving in their inbox. One thing I would like to note as far as that registration link goes, the registration link for students can be found right here, register for orientation. Students are encouraged to click on that link, and then that will take them to log in with their Mason ID, their net ID, excuse me. And so that's why it's so important that they set up their email and all of those pieces before they register for orientation. Alrighty, so accessing your family schedule and listening to a little bit about what you all need to know for orientation. If you click under family members and family orientation, this is where you can find a lot of our information about your orientation experience. Now, that being said, we do want to go over your schedule, and I'll tell you a little bit about what that looks like in detail and return to our slides. Oops. All right, and tell you a little bit about what this family supporter orientation experience will look like and give you some tips and tricks for a successful on-campus orientation session. So the first thing that you all will do if you want to attend the on-campus session is register. You will register as a guest on your student's orientation registration link. So there's not a separate registration process. You will have to ask your student to click on their registration link, and at the bottom of their registration form, you should see a section to add guests. You should be able to add up to 5 adult guests and up to 5 children. If you have any needs for more than that, please contact our office. But as of now, that is what our form is set to. Within that form, once you submit your information, you will be asked to pay for your registration fee. For our adults, that is $55. And for our children, ages 3 through 12, that is $25. And then children under 3 are free. Just a quick caveat here is that we don't necessarily have specific activities or a different schedule for our children guests. Please know that they will be staying with you if you are bringing child guests to the orientation session. They'll be kind of going through the orientation schedule with you all as the guest adult. And then lastly, once you have paid, you'll receive a confirmation email from our wonderful colleagues in the family program side of our office. And then you'll come to your orientation program date that you have signed up for, and I'll follow the schedule that I will be going over right now. So what to expect when you finally arrive to campus for your on-campus orientation session. Our schedule begins at 9 a.m. and you will check in at the Buchanan Hall lobby. There is a separate check-in from students. So students will be directed to check in on their own in order to get all of the things that they need to go through their student schedule. And then families will just take a step into another building right off of that plaza in order to check in for family and supporter orientation. And then during that time, you'll also be able to enjoy a free breakfast, get to know a lot of our campus resources in a space called the Green and Gold Showcase, where we'll have a number of different tables and campus resources from academic advising, from parking, from student success coaching, and many, many more we'll have set up to share different swag items, different information that you might need to know, and then be available for any questions that you might have. Following this Green and Gold Showcase from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Noon, you will go through opening presentations with your students. So all students and attending family members will be able to hear from our academics. They'll be able to hear from financial aid, as well as some school spirit from our Patriot leaders through a surprise performance that you will not want to miss. Following that morning presentation space, we will split you up between families and supporters and our students. So our students will go to lunch with their peers and their small groups led by these Patriot leaders, who we will return to in just a moment. And then families and supporters will split off to a separate lunch, as well as different presentations, activities, panels, and other sessions throughout the afternoon. This is so that you all can receive the information that you all need to know as family members, and then ask your questions as family members, and then our students can receive the information that they need to receive as student populations at Mason. And then at 5:45, following these different presentations and activities, all of our participants, including family members, students, will all come together for a combined dinner. And following that dinner at 6:45, there will be some optional evening activities for our students until about 8:30 p.m. So you might be wondering a little bit about why you might want to attend on-campus orientation and what benefits you might see from being able to attend. So number one is to be able to get to know our beautiful campus and our buildings. This is a really great opportunity to see campus in its prime because it's the summer. It's not as crowded as you might see when you come for move-in or when you come for family weekend, and you really get to experience the campus as a whole as orientation participants. Of course, get to learn a little bit about campus resources. I say a little bit, but a lot. You will learn a ton about campus resources. We have so many of our partners across campus coming to present on their topics, present on their resources for your student and for you, and also for you all to be able to ask those questions. This is a really great space for you all to make community with each other. So our family members, like we said, will be participating in these activities, sessions, and presentations together. And so this is a great opportunity for you all to meet people that you might live close to, or people who might share your identities, or people who are within the same academic realm as your student. And so this is a great opportunity for you all to be able to do that and continue those community pieces throughout the rest of your time here at Mason. Of course, supporting your student. This is a great way to see what your students might experience during their session, as well as during their time as a student overall at Mason. It's a really great glance into kind of all of the possibilities that they might be able to get involved in, to get resources in, and to get help in. And so we really encourage you all to engage with those pieces when you are here for on-campus orientation. Of course, I know that the most important piece of orientation in these spaces and any space where you might be having some FaceTime with us is to get your questions answered. And so, like we said, we will have a number of different staff from all over the university being able to answer questions, as well as current students who may be able to answer questions about their specific experience as students at Mason so far. And then lastly, all guests will receive a Mason tote bag, a lanyard, and many, many more Mason swag items, not just from us as new student and family programs, but also from all of the different campus partners. They really love to just spoil you all with all kinds of swag items and different pieces that you can decorate and really show your school spirit for Mason with.
So speaking of school spirit, this is a group of undergraduate students that we call our Patriot Leaders. So they're peer, like mentors, peer leaders on campus that will be the main supporter of your student during the day. They'll take them on a campus tour. They'll explain different traditions that we have with your student. They'll take a picture at the George Mason statue. These students have a lot of Patriot pride, and they're so excited to share about their experience and answer any questions that your students have to ease in their transition to Mason. These students go through a semester-long training, and then they have some summer training to prepare them to be super knowledgeable about resources that your student can utilize. And so they're that connection throughout our summer program for your student. And so we're really excited for your students to meet them, spend the day with them. It'll be a blast, really. So we're really looking forward to, and I know they're really looking forward to supporting your students and give them a great welcome when they arrive. So now we're going to go into some tips for success. We'll begin by talking about transportation. And so, as you may know, we're in pretty close distance to the metro. And so what's really great is there is a bus that individuals can take from the metro to campus, which is super accessible, and there are regular shuttles that are available to you if that's something that you would like to utilize. Additionally, for our overnight option, so just so that you all know, your student has the option of staying in the residence hall on campus overnight, but it is for undergraduate students only. And so families, I'll talk about hotels next and maybe some opportunities there. But your student will be able to, after check-in, they'll be able to get shuttled to their residence hall and drop off items within the room that they'll be staying in. And so that will take place in the morning from 8:15 to 10:15. And so your student will be able to check in, go drop their items so that they do not have to carry them all day. And then we'll have shuttles to and from one of the hotels that we're partnering with the residents in. We'll have that in the morning from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. So if you're staying in that hotel, you can utilize that shuttle. And then from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. following our evening programming. And so that's something that is available to you if you would like to utilize it. And then next we have shuttles. So our evening program takes place in a building on campus called the Hub. And so the shuttles will go from the Hub to Lot K where you're parked. And then lastly, if you're driving to campus and you'll have your own vehicle, you can park in Lot K free of charge for the duration of the day in our program. And so these are transportation options to you. So feel free to pick what's best for you. But we wanted to make sure that you knew how to get to campus as you arrive.
I just wanted to also touch on the housing piece just a little bit more. So for students who are interested in staying overnight, that is the night of their program. So this is a one-day program that begins at 9 a.m. and ends at around 8:30 p.m. for our students. And so that'll be that night following those evening activities when it comes to overnight housing. Students can indicate that on their registration form. It's listed on there that guests are not allowed within those residence hall spaces. It is only for those undergraduate students. And confirmation and communication will come from our housing and residence life department via email. They are working on putting together those spaces and getting that communication out to you all sometime over the next couple of weeks. So they will come before your orientation session. So we will let you all know if for any reason the spaces are all booked up, but that will come from a different email than our office, and it'll come from our housing and residence life office.
Awesome. And so if you all are looking for a place to stay, we have hotel partnerships, and Dalen just dropped the link in the chat for this, where you can go through the portal and receive the Mason discount. If you're going through the website, be sure to enter the code G57 at checkout for these hotels that are listed on the screen. And as I said, the link that Dalen dropped would be your best route to do this. And so you all can get discounted rates, which is pretty great for our area. And they're very close to campus within driving distance, or you could take the shuttle, as I mentioned previously, from the residence inn to campus. And then we talked about student housing where they can sign up when they register for orientation. So that's something that they can utilize if they want to experience staying in one of our residence halls.
Please note that something that's different from previous years that we've had orientation, because this is a one-day model on campus. Overnight housing is not required. And so your student can stay with you all, especially if you are local, they can go back home. It's not necessarily required that they stay overnight in the residence halls. The residence halls also may not be the residence hall that they are living in for the fall. This is going to be a space that's available for that session. And so we don't exactly know exactly what those buildings will be at this point in time, but it will be in a general residence hall area. And so students might just get a general idea of what that looks like. So moving into a little bit and talking about accessibility. And so if you saw on our schedule, there's going to be a number of different activities and panels for both our students and our family members. When we lead you all from building to building, all of our students are instructed to take accessible pathways. And so we try to avoid stairs and make sure that we are being cognizant of any mobility needs that any of our students may have. Now, that being said, if you all need any other accessibility accommodations, when you're registering for orientation, you may list any of those accommodations that you may need for your on-campus experience, as well as for your virtual experience that you might, that your student will be a part of. Specifically within the on-campus experience, though, you may see a need for mobility needs, some dietary restrictions that you may have, and anything else that you might see when reviewing the schedule and seeing, oh, maybe this is something that I might need. When you indicate those accessibility pieces on your registration form, that information gets sent over to our disability services office. They are our wonderful and best partners when it comes to registering for disability services and receiving accommodations. And so once that happens, disability services also in conjunction with our emails, we'll send a separate email to register your student for any needs that they might have for the entire academic year. By doing so, you don't have to do that in August. You don't have to worry about whether or not your student will be coming into a space in which the Mason may or may not know about some accommodations that they might need. And so it's really advised that you register with disability services as soon as possible. And you can do that on their website or through that email that will be sent out if you indicate a need for any accommodations. If you all using your vehicles have any handicap or accessible parking needs, you will need your hang tag that you use on a daily basis or at the time of orientation. And then you can park in front of Mason Pond. All of this information will be shared with you all via an email. Especially for mobility accommodations, there should be a 7-day reminder email with all of this information sent out if you had indicated the need for it. That being said, our parking and transportation services does a really great job of offering something called Patriot Lift, which is a on-campus service to help shuttle students to and from different locations on campus. You can check out that information on the transportation website by scanning this link here, or visiting transportation.gmu.edu and then sending them an email at transpo@gmu.edu. And then again, for you all, if you have any specific questions about disability services or anything that your student or you may need during your on-campus session, I really recommend that you reach out to disability services. They are a wonderful partner of ours, and they will do a great job of being able to talk you through your specific situation and see what accommodations might be possible for you all. And then lastly, if you have any specific questions, maybe after you've had these conversations, or you don't really know what questions to ask, you're more than welcome to please contact us at our office number, our virtual help desk on our website, or our email inbox at orientu@gmu.edu. All right. And lastly, we do want to highlight some family orientation resources for you all. So just like our students have that Patriot Preview module that we've talked about, you all have also virtual video modules that you can watch to learn a little bit more about all of our campus resources that we have here. So just as before, if you click on this family members tab and that first tab of family orientation and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, there will be a link called Virtual Family Orientation Resources. Above this is also a welcome from our president, Dr. Gregory Washington, as well as a welcome from our vice president for university life. Dalen has also dropped that chat in the link, that link in the chat. And you can absolutely check that out at any point. This will always stay up throughout the entirety of the academic year. So if you need a quick refresher on what a resource is or what resource might exist for financial aid, let's say, or for academic advising, you can go and scroll through the different categories on that site and watch a quick video to get some more information about that specific office. All right. And that wraps up all of the information that we have provided for you all this evening. I know that you all might have some questions. As you all think of more questions past tonight, or if you're not quite here with us and watching this at a later date, we also have our orientation FAQs page, or our frequently asked questions page. You can scan that link here, or you can follow this FAQ link that we've listed here on the slide. Otherwise, you feel free to please contact us throughout the rest of this summer at any point within your transition to Mason. You can also, like we said, chat with us on the NSFP website. There's a little box that pops up that says virtual help desk, chat with us. And that live chat is available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then you can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram to see what different events, different event highlights that we have, and then some pictures from the past orientation sessions that you can reference if you want to get excited for your time here at Mason. All right, well, thank you all so much for your attention. We will revisit our Q&A now and answer some of those questions.
Yeah, before we do so, I'm just going to launch a quick poll just for your feedback for folks, just so that we can make sure we get everyone's insight. This is our first time ever doing our summer family support series, so would love any feedback that you all have regarding this as we continue to go into our Q&A. So do not click the X on the poll that probably just popped up on y'all's screens. Please fill this out. So we can continue to host programs like this and get your feedback. So while y'all are filling this out, I have marked a few questions from guests. And of course, as folks continue to have these questions, I will continue to ask them. So the first question that I have, and Jesse, you kind of spoke about this when you were going over the accessibility side, but just to reiterate, is for folks who have mobility issues, how much movement walking is required during the family orientation program, and what options might be available for additional mobility support?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So for specifically our family programs, I believe that the first presentations in the morning, they take place all in the same building within the same space. So from about 9 a.m. when you check in to about noon, you'll be staying within the same space, so there won't be a lot of movement or walking around during that time. Our walk from the concert hall, or the Center for the Arts, which is where our morning sessions take place, to South Side, which is where our families will have lunch, which is one of our dining halls. We are able to work with our parking and transportation services to be able to provide Patriot Lift if that's something that you all need. But we'll also be able to take an accessible route to get there. So that's probably about, Dalen, would you say like a 5-minute walk?
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah, over to our 2-hour lunch period with all of our different family members and supporters attending. From there, all of our afternoon sessions will be held in the hub, again, which is 2-minute walk, I would say, to from the South Side Dining Hall up on the 3rd floor. There are elevators within that space, and most of our presentations within that space will be taking place on the same floor and will not require a whole lot of movement between those presentations. And then back to the Johnson Center, there is an accessible route that way. Again, another probably 3 to 4 minute walk to the Johnson Center, where you all will be able to participate in some other experience rotations, as well as a dinner within the Johnson Center for that evening. And then our shuttles will be able to take you back to the hub and back to your hotels or Lot K, which is where you may have parked your vehicle.
Great, thank you. So our next question kind of pertains to like the virtual advising component to our orientation. So this guest here scheduled their on-campus orientation first before going to their virtual advising. There might be some folks on this call who scheduled their virtual advising prior to going to their on-campus. Do you think that's okay? Or does the virtual advising need to be first?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and answer that. They can take it in whatever order is best for them. And so whatever days work best, as long as you complete it, that's the goal. And so attending both and registering for both is most important. And so whatever order is best for you, as long as they're completed.
Great, thank you so much for that answer. So we're getting a lot of questions regarding our overnight. So I'm going to kind of consolidate a few of them into one question for you all. So first is, if students did not originally select that they wanted or were interested in staying overnight, but are now interested after hearing about that as an option, are they able to change that in their registration form at this point?
Yeah, so they should be able to. Our students can go into the same registration link that they used to sign up for orientation and just change that information on there. You can do that with any of the information presented within that registration form. If you all are having any issues with that, once you are in that space, you're more than welcome to call our office or let us know. Sometimes, technology can be a little finicky. We may ask that you try a different browser or whatnot, but for the most part, if you go in, you can change if let's say your phone number changes, or you want to add a second guest to your orientation session. You can do that and change your housing preference by going on that same registration form that you completed.
Great. And then for students who might have already selected that as an option, and our families and guests here are very excited for that as an option, what will that possibly entail for them after Club Patriot? Like, do they, when will they go over? Like, what does all that kind of look like for them?
Yeah, so students will go over to the residence hall following our evening program called Club Patriot, where they'll have the opportunity to socialize with other students who they may not have been with and meet more Patriot leaders. So after that program, there'll be the group of students who are staying in the residence hall will be able to participate in a program that's being hosted by Housing Residence Life here at Mason. And so that program will be directly following Club Patriot. And so they'll make their way over there and then participate in that program.
And then from there, they'll be able to, like I said, the check-in will happen in the morning alongside the check-in with the rest of our orientation program. So at that point, the students should have their keys after their evening programming wraps up with us. Their evening programming wraps up with Housing and Residence Life. They're instructed to go to their spaces, rest, just get to know like the building, and really probably take in a lot of that information and get some rest after a long day of learning a lot about what Mason is. The next day, checkout will be by 11 a.m. And so the checkout process is that they will drop off their keys at a certain location, again, that our Housing and Residence Life will communicate in an email. And so they can leave at any point before 11 a.m. the following day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So going back to our virtual orientation sessions. So are virtual orientation sessions like group sessions? If so, maybe how big is the group? And then how much time do each person get with their advisors specifically?
Yeah, so our virtual advising and registration sessions are primarily set so that they can have the entirety of their session time with their advisors. So a little bit about what that schedule will look like for our students. They will start in a virtual Patriot Welcome space. That will last only about 5 minutes. That's really just to tell the students about what the day will look like. To tell them a little bit about like resources that they have and to just give them a couple of reminders before heading into their specific advising and registration space. So virtual advising and registration is done in about a 4-hour chunk. That is how long that session is. It will start by sending all of your students to the specific college Zoom rooms based on what their major is. And so we'll have all of our different colleges and schools host Zoom rooms with the academic advisors of that respective college. And students will be instructed to go to the college rooms that corresponds with their major. They'll receive a presentation from our advisors about what information they need to know when it comes to actually registering for classes. And then from there, depending on the actual college, they'll either break off into smaller breakout rooms with their specific advisors, or they'll break off one by one with advisors into separate Zoom breakout rooms and register for their classes in that space. They will also have Patriot leaders within that space to be able to answer any questions that they may have navigating our Patriot Web portal, which is basically like the online portal in which they select their classes. But that whole 4-hour chunk is basically set aside for your students to be able to engage with advisors, to be able to ask whatever questions that they need. Again, I can't give like a general answer for all of our colleges because it does depend on how many students are a part of that college. So for example, our College of Engineering and Computing has a large population. And so things may be moving a little bit quicker within that space. There may be a lot of advisors in a lot of different breakout rooms. And you may see some breakout rooms have more than a couple people inside, but they do their best to try and cycle students in and out of that space so that they can get as much one-on-one individual time with advisors as possible. Now, that being said, let's compare that to the Carter School. You might see that there are fewer students within that space, and so they may get a little bit more face time with their advisors and be able to get a little bit more individual time. That's just kind of the nature of the different populations that we have here at Mason. So definitely something for you all to note, that would be a good space for students to be able to come prepared with some questions that they might have when it comes to their advising and registration.
And I see a quick note in the chat that I just want to address. So the 4-hour virtual advising session is separate from the day that you're on campus. So when your student registers for orientation, they'll be able to pick the virtual advising registration date and then their orientation date, and they are 2 separate dates.
Awesome. So we have another question surrounding the on-campus orientation piece. So do freshmen and transfer students go through orientation together, or are they separated into groups if they are? Because folks have found maybe a lot of presentations, maybe more so geared towards freshman families. So transfers often have different questions. So can you speak to like what that will look like on site for folks and how we provide an equivalent experience for our transfer students as well as our incoming freshmen?
Yeah, so during our on-campus sessions, freshmen and transfers will be going through the same schedule together. So they'll be receiving a lot of the same information when it comes to campus resources that they may be utilizing. So when they're hearing from financial aid, when they're hearing from let's see, who else will we be hearing from housing, when they're hearing from our campus safety and student rights presentation, all of that information is applicable to all of our students who are arriving on campus, and so that will be shared. However, the virtual advising and registration session is designated by transfer students and freshman students. So freshman students will be in a space together within that virtual advising and registration space. with other freshman students, same with transfer students. And then also for our honors students have one date on campus and one date for their virtual advising and registration session. And so our students will all be with their specific populations when it comes to virtual advising and registration, and then be able to meet with other students from all kinds of populations during their on-campus experience.
Awesome. I'm going through all of our questions coming in. So a few questions. So if a student has a later virtual advising and registration date in the summer, will class sections still be open for freshmen to register and other folks to register for those classes?
Yeah, so the student will work with their academic advisor to figure out what classes best fit their academic plan. And so there will be classes for them to register for when they attend virtual advising registration, and their advisor will work with them. Students can take a variety of classes. Not all first year students or transfer students take the same classes. And so your student will have some choice in that. And so there'll be classes available for them to register for.
Great, thank you. So I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding housing, specifically for fall housing. So I'm not going to ask those questions here, but just to address this, we are doing a family support summer series specifically around housing later in the summer, around July time. During orientation for families and guests, we do have a housing and residence life session for families who might have on-campus students, as well as a session specifically for families who will have off-campus, whether they're living in an apartment or living at home or whatever that might look like for those folks. And so during orientation, they will provide more dates and more specific things regarding the housing process, like roommate selection, housing selection, where they're going to be placed, all of that stuff. That doesn't take place until later in the summer, as we are still having folks deposit. We are still working on all of those things. So that'll be later on in the summer when you start getting those details, such as roommates and everything else, but they will be able to speak to that specifically. And then in July, we'll have a family support summer series regarding the move-in process and what all of that looks like and will entail for you and your student on site for our move-in dates. Our move-in dates are August 16th and 17th. And on the Mason Family website, you can also find all of the important dates and deadlines, such as like financial aid, payment dates, immunization dates, all on the Mason Family website by going to our family calendar, which is under resources, and I will drop a link to that chat in here. In regards to roommate situations and student pairings for orientation, that is all done by housing. So we do not do all of that. We just send a list directly to our housing liaisons that work with us for our orientation program, and they work on doing all of the pairing based off of possible like possible factors that you've indicated in your like applications and other things. So if you needed specific housing, we recommend contacting the housing office directly, as they will be able to help support you all in all of those things. I will also note that housing is currently working on moving out all of their folks. So they are done moving out people by May 17th, especially around graduation time. We have people who are doing extended stays around graduation. So as you all are emailing them possibly regarding overnight stays for orientation or other things, I just want you all to be prepared for a potential delay in response, as they are still working on closing out our buildings from the academic year. So please just be mindful of all of that. But they are the ones that will be coordinating all the dorm room assignments and all of the pairings and roommates for orientation. We just send the list of guests who are planning, or for students who are planning on staying on campus. So we can't really provide much information of like what that process looks like, how they're going to go about doing that. That is all managed by housing. So I'm just seeing a lot of questions about that. And I just want to speak to that here. We'll end on a fun question. One of our guests would like to know, Juliana, what your cat's name is. So we can end there, and yeah.
Yeah, this is Fluff. She's a big Mason fan and just wanted to join. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. And please reach out to our orientation email if you have any questions.
Jesse, I see you marked a question to answer live of folks who selected a virtual class section, but we didn't have the option to pick what time that day the class selection takes place. When is that time assigned for the day they selected?
Yes, so I'm assuming that this is referring to our virtual advising and registration session. So we will have morning and afternoon sessions. Our morning sessions take place from 9 a.m. till 9 a.m. till 12 o'clock, 12 noon. And then our afternoon sessions take place from 1:30 to 5. And then we do have one evening session in the summer that takes place from 6 p.m. till 8:30. This should be available in that confirmation email that your students received, but I know that that's, a lot of information is coming in all at once. And so morning, afternoon, and evening are the 3 different selections for their virtual advising and registration session. And then I did see another question real quick about some online class catalogs. Those can be found on your student specific college websites. They have a lot of different resources for what different tracks might look like depending on their major. And so depending on what they're interested in, that would be a great resource to be able to find different class catalogs and things that you might need before you're heading into your advising and registration space.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here this evening at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We really appreciate it. Just for some general housekeeping. So we record all of these sessions. We will email out the recording along with all of the links from the Mason Family Connection, which is where you all registered. Now, since you've also registered in the Mason Family Connection, you will begin receiving newsletters and other announcements as you get ready to send your student off to Mason. And so if you have any additional questions, you can email us at orientu@gmu.edu, or you can also email the families account, which is just families@gmu.edu, and we will answer whatever questions that you all have regarding orientation or additional family programs that we'll be hosting. If you haven't already done so, please fill out our poll, but we really appreciate your time this evening and hope that this session was informative, and we are very excited to see you all at orientation. But thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Juliana, for your time tonight. And families, guests, students, we really appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your night.
Dalen, are you saying something to us?
Yes, I was, and I realized I was muted.
You want me to stop the recording?
Yeah, I can stop the recording. Well,